Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today? So today I'm here. I'm really coming back because I had gently put in my first video some of my thoughts, and I wanted to go over two ideas that I have. One, I waited, because I really didn't want to have the the sad discussion about Nancy Guthrie. And I didn't want to do any videos on her, but I felt compelled because time has gone on, and really, with no proof of life, um, I felt very strongly in my mind that Miss Guthrie um, probably is not with us anymore. That was one idea. And then what has started to develop over these last 2 weeks, I keep going back to the initial reporting of what happened, the initial handling of the case by law enforcement, and the circumstances of how everything unfolded, which makes me look at who knew Nancy Guthrie. It was a lot of things, pivotal things about her habits. I'm going to go over it all. That makes me feel like we need to hone in, focus in more on Nancy Guthrie as the victim. Not so much about her famous daughter. I'm not going to talk about her famous daughter at all. I want to focus in on Miss Guthrie. So let's just kick this off really quickly because I'm going to go over some things that we already discussed. So I'm going to pull up a picture of Miss Guthrie as we discuss her. Okay. So this is Nancy Guthrie. She just celebrated her birthday. Her birthday was January 27th, okay? She turned 84 years old. Now, we all know the time frame. On January 31st, she went and had dinner at her daughter's house. She was returned by her husband, her daughter's husband. She went through allegedly the garage and entered back into her home. And from that moment forward, we don't have any more details about the ongoings between the time she arrived at home, approximately 9:48 p.m., to really them establishing a timeline of her disappearance. Okay, that next day, that Sunday morning, when she did not appear for a church service, someone reached out to her family, and now this is all this the circumstances and the disappearance is all being unpacked and turned over to law enforcement to investigate. So let's kind of talk about um, both things kind of together. I don't want to keep them too separate. Um, I'm concerned that from the inception of this case, when I saw the porch and I saw the blood, and it was confirmed that it was Nancy Guthrie's blood, um, I felt immediately concerned about her health. Um, Not just knowing her age and that she's an elder, but she's on medication, right? So typically, you're used to taking that medication daily. You have really it's set up in your mind. This is part of your daily activity to take this medication. And she has a pacemaker. So when I'm hearing that she's been abducted, kidnapped, however you want to call it, my concern is that if this is a kidnapping or an abduction and her medicine was not taken, it starts to make the wheels in my mind go. If this is a ransom, you want to keep the person pretty healthy. You don't want them harmed. If you want to get a return and get someone to pay you this ransom, they're going to want proof of life, but they're also going to want to know that their loved one is healthy and they're okay. The kidnapper slash abductor um, allegedly taking Nancy from the home and not taking her medication, that was kind of stunning to me because you want to be paid. If this is a ransom and your goal is to extort the family, for money. They're going to want to know, of course, that she's okay, but also they want her returned safely, the best condition possible. So them not taking her medication, to me, it really stood out. Um, it was as if, um, I don't want to say they didn't care, but they weren't concerned about her and caring for her when that happened. And that stood out to me. So when I further see that there's blood on the front porch, and then in the media, it's reported that there was some type of uh, indication inside the house that maybe there was a struggle, the home was in disarray. They did not detail it, but there was something indicative happening in that house that made law enforcement concerned also. So we know that Nancy has some type of injury where she's bleeding out, okay? And the kidnappers, they don't take her medication, okay? It makes me think again of two different things. Either the kidnapper, they weren't concerned about her, or Nancy had already met her demise at the property. You don't have to take medication for someone that's deceased. You don't have to care for them because they're already gone. So those were what my two thoughts were regarding the lack of taking the medication. And then again, I'm immediately feeling that Nancy is injured when I see the blood, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned about her. How long is she going to be able to sustain without any medical attention? Plus, um, she's injured, she's bleeding, and she doesn't have her medicine. Okay. So, check something off. My mind went to a couple of things when I'm thinking about a home invasion, a kidnapping. The police did not report whether there was anything stolen from the property. I kind of mentioned this in my last video, but not just the abduction, but was anything taken from the home? Was there any electronics, computers, any any jewelry, anything that you could sell and get money? Um, I also was interested to know if Nancy Guthrie had any type of credit cards or checks, or her bank accounts, anything like that. Were those disturbed? Were those used? Was any money withdrawn? Um, Sometimes an abductor, kidnapper will, or robber will make you go to the bank and withdraw funds out of the account. We don't know. We haven't heard anything like that, but I was also interested in that because if this is kidnapping and the goal is to get money through this ransom demand, um, would they have stolen any of her money directly from a bank account or credit cards or something like that? So I was thinking from that angle. Um, as I've said to you in the past video, um, there's really like um, three different things that people want in a kidnapping, or the reason behind the kidnapping. They want, again, money, the ransom. Okay, it could be triggered off of some relationship, something that happened, something that unfolded, right? And then the last reason for something like this is revenge. Um, did she have any enemies? Was something happening, or was she targeted in a way for revenge, maybe against her or a family member or something like that? I don't know if Nancy Guthrie is employed or if she's retired, but could this be something job related? Was she looking into something, investigating someone, reporting something? Was there any interactions with police? Has she ever called 911? Was there anything that could point to why this happened, right? And again, I go back to, if this was really about a ransom, because I think a lot of people feel like this was a kidnapping based on a ransom. The ransom allegedly didn't come in for 3 days. Um, but typically, you don't see a lot of elderly people kidnapped, and you also don't see a lot of people kidnapped for a long, extended period of time. You know, if someone's kidnapped, they want the kidnapping to go pretty fast. They want to get the ransom out pretty quick because they have to keep up with this person. They have to watch this person. They have to spend time with this person, which usually makes them break away from their regular routine. What if the person tries to escape? In this case, Nancy Guthrie was injured. So, how do you care for her? And she doesn't have her medication and she has a pacemaker. All of this plays into the idea that most kidnappings, they don't want to hold the person for a long, extended period of time. And we know that allegedly the ransom did not come in for 72 hours, which to me, that's a long time. Also, it did not appear that the communication from the kidnapper was done to Nancy Guthrie's family. It seems that that was happening with the media, which could also trigger people to feel that those could be um, fake kidnappers, that they're just trying to extort money from the family during a difficult time, a very vulnerable time. Um, what stands out to me, um, there has been no proof of life. Most people are not going to pay a ransom. I would tell my family, don't pay a ransom. But not just the not paying the ransom, you can't expect for someone to pay this large sum of money with no proof of life. And they have no signs, at least in the media, has not been reported there any signs of proof of life. So if there's no signs of proof of life, this is beyond 2 days. This is, 2 weeks in, going into a third week, and we still have no signs that Nancy Guthrie is still with us. And that also goes along with my theory that Nancy Guthrie, she may have succumbed from her injuries at the home. In the home, she definitely was removed from the home. That's why we have the droplets outside. And unfortunately, we don't have proof of life to show or thwart the idea that she is still alive. We don't know. I did watch a interview. It was a plea, and part of that plea from the family was saying that they wanted to celebrate Nancy Guthrie. And when you start hearing certain phrases, it makes me feel that the family may have felt in that time during that particular statement that they felt their mom was not here. Maybe there was some information that she was deceased. I'm sure they're getting tons of tips, especially when they post a reward. Rewards are not necessarily the way to go because you get a lot of people putting in false tips and claiming to be someone with knowledge, and it just doesn't go anywhere. It wastes law enforcement time because they're chasing all of these fake tips where the investigation should really focus and hone in on Nancy Guthrie. Okay, and her habits and what she was doing leading up to that day, throughout those hours leading up to that evening into the early morning hours where she was, I want to say, allegedly kidnapped and abducted. Okay. Um, so again, there was no proof of life since the abduction, and that's my point. Okay, this is what leads me to think that Miss Guthrie is not here anymore. Um, just going to continue my thoughts. Um, I was kind playing in my mind, if Nancy Guthrie was injured in the house, that's what appears to have happened. She probably was asleep when the assailant got into the property and awoken and injured. Some type of fight, struggle happened, and she was allegedly, possibly injured in the property. Why not leave Nancy Guthrie in her home? Why not? You'd have to assist her in getting out of the home. Um, if she's injured, and it appears that she was, why not leave her in her own home? Um, I have two thoughts. My first thought is, if there was a battle or struggle and Nancy Guthrie was mortally injured, to conceal that, that's considered a murder. You take her with you. You take her with you because you can maybe set a different scenario up where she is found, if she's found at all. Um, some people do things to, make sure a person is never found. For example, they may bury them, they may burn their body, um, they may store their body, freeze their body, hide their body, um, cut their body up, um, dump their body, get on a boat and try to, get their body to uh, sink to the bottom of the ocean or whatever. Um, but anyway, all of that goes to the idea that you take Nancy Guthrie with you because you're concealing a murder. That's my first idea. So why not just leave Nancy in her home? My other idea is, you want to make it look like she's been abducted, like there's a kidnapping there. Something has happened really bad. She's either mortally injured or severely injured. And to take it away from the home, you want it to appear like it's a kidnapping versus a murder. And that's just my idea of why Nancy Guthrie was not left in the property, um, in my opinion. Okay, moving on. I always like to think about, who would do this? Who would focus on a person, harm them, unalive them, kidnap them? Kidnapping a person is a burden because you have to care for them, you have to feed them, you have to maintain that proof of life, so when you reach out you can prove that you have the person, to if you're trying to get the ransom, right? But I always try to think in my mind, who would do this? And I'm a simple person. I like to look at things, the path of least resistance. And this is why my second part of this video, my idea is, who is Nancy Guthrie? We know she's a mother. We know she's an elder. We know she lives in Arizona. She lives in a beautiful, home. And I want to talk about the home a little bit too, but, um, you know, we know that she's someone that has a routine. She has some medical issues. She has these beautiful children. She appears to be very close to them. Um, I don't know what her habits and things she enjoy. We know she attends, church service. There's been a lot of outdoor pictures of her, so she does get out. So, in my idea of really wanting to focus in on Nancy Guthrie, I look at a lot of things, and one thing I look at is, who knew who knew the ongoings, the daily routines, the habits of Nancy Guthrie? Who would know that Nancy Guthrie lived alone? Who would know that Nancy Guthrie didn't have a dog? Who would know that Nancy Guthrie didn't have an alarm? Who would know that Nancy Guthrie was no longer maintaining her camera system? Who would know those things? Because I have to think at this in a logical way. And we're going to go back to the MMO, something I've shared in other videos. Who had the means, who had the motive, and who had the opportunity to commit this kidnapping, abduction? Who had the means, who had the access to go to this home? When you look at Nancy Guthrie's home, okay, let me get a picture of her home up, okay? Now, this is a recent picture. They say it's just 2 days ago. So, this would be very valid, okay, to take a look at. I want you to see what I see, okay? And why I'm thinking about it in this way. I'm really just having a conversation with you about my thoughts, okay? Um, but when I look at this property, the first word that comes to my mind, I said this kind of in my last video, the first video, it looks like a compound. It does not look like a residential home to me. Um, it just triggered in my mind, the structure of it, all the brick. Um, it looks like a fort, all of this brick, all of this protection, which is great. It's great to be safe, not to have a lot of trees blocking your view, to be able to see around the perimeter. To me, this is a large home for someone to live alone, and they're elderly, but it seems to be one level, so you can, get around pretty good. But it seems like a large home with, different sections. You got a section here, it looks like a pool back there. It's a large property, right? But when I look at the house, I think, who's interested in trying to make a break into this home? When I showed you the front door last time, and I can pull it up again. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna find the front door again. Because I want you to see that. When I looked at the front door, and I just noticed like the steel, the security door. Let me get. Um, Show you that security door again, because when I'm looking at the front door, they had a full picture of her security door the other day. Okay, I'm not seeing it right now. I'm just seeing like the bottom, and this is fine to show you just the front porch. But she had this security door, and to me, I could not see a point of entry. I've seen a safety, security door, steel black security door, metal. Um, you see those tall windows. I don't see where the point of entry is for this property. And it goes back and ties back into my focus and my thoughts when I'm looking at the property. How did the kidnappers enter into this property? Did they have a key? Did they get in through the garage? Did they have some type of passcode? Did Nancy Guthrie let them in? Did she know them? Was she woken and came to the front door and let them in? We have to think about it all. We have to consider it all, and we have to think: did Nancy Guthrie know her perpetrator? Did they have a key? How did they get into this property? Because from looking at the house, looking at how formidable it is, I don't know who would want to break into this brick stone, you know, compound. How are you breaking into that front door? I can't see it. I don't know how that happened. I would like to know at some point, if I continue to follow the case, how did they enter into the property? It looks like a compound. It's full of brick security doors. And again, this goes back to who had the means. Who in Nancy Guthrie's life would have access to her property? Did they have a key? Did they have a passcode? Did they have a garage opener? How did they get into this property? How? I don't know. But it doesn't look appear to be entry gained through the structure of the house being brick with these security doors. I don't see it. I don't know how it happened. I haven't heard how that happened yet. I don't know if there was some type of broken window. I haven't seen a broken window. Um, I'm concerned when I look at who had the means, you know, someone have a garage opener. Was that long so they could enter when they needed to? They have a key. They have some type of passcode, like a keypad. I don't know. What I do know is Nancy Guthrie, she was a vulnerable woman. She was an elder. She had some medical issues. And the day, the night, just hours before, she got into a Uber, which I felt flabbergasted because I won't even get into a car. I won't order a car service at my younger age. Okay, I'm younger than Miss Guthrie, of course, but I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel safe. So there would be no way I would allow my elder parent or my child to get into a car service. It doesn't make sense. If you're going over for dinner and you're a vulnerable person, why order a Uber? Wouldn't you just want to go and pick your loved one up? A 5 minute drive, a 10 minute drive, a 20 minute drive, so you can, also make them feel safe. But I'm going to tell you this: there's a lot of instances where I don't think the right decision was made. Putting her into that Uber makes her vulnerable. She's alone. Someone may feel that she lives alone. No one's walking her out to the Uber. No one's waving goodbye. A person can feel like, oh, that person lives alone. It's scary business, man. It's really scary. But also, what was even more shocking, and I'm going to speak to my experience as a daughter. If I carry my mom out and we travel and we do different things, I'm going to ensure her protection. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to ensure her safety, her protection. She's going to be cared for. She's going to be asked if she wants anything to drink or eat. And when I take her back, because I'm her driver, wherever she wants to go, whatever she wants to do. But when she gets back, I'm going to make sure, especially in a late hour in the dark, and this is not regular dark. This is like pitch black unless there's lighting sources out there. I'm going to make sure I'm carrying her in that house. I'm going to take a look around to make sure it's safe and secure. I'm going to check her windows. I'm going to ensure that she gets in that house, she gets settled before I pull off. And this is not what this is nowhere close to what happened. It's just so unfortunate. The lack of care, the lack of concern. I understand independence. My idea of independence is let your parent, let them have their independence, but you also show some care and concern. And from what is described, she was dropped off. She wasn't walked into the house. She wasn't assisted in the house. No one went in the house to ensure that the house was okay. No one checked the house. No one ensured that there was nothing happening inside as she returned in the late of night, in the dark. She went into a garage, and it was assumed that she was okay. Again, I go back to where is the care? Where is the concern for Nancy Guthrie? Where is it? As an elder, as a mother, you know, they're fragile, they're vulnerable. It seems to me there was like a lack of patience about her. You don't have time to pick her up, you send an Uber. You don't even have time to assist her in the house, to make sure she makes it inside safely and that the house is secure. And this triggers all kind of things in me because I have to go back to what would be the motive for this. To me, it is not a ransom. Two dates for a ransom, they went by. There was no ransom paid. To my belief, from what I have heard and seen in the media, there appears to be some finances with the family where they could have set a $1 million reward. That didn't happen. I mean, I'm glad it didn't happen because those usually don't go anywhere. But the fact that it didn't happen also stands out. Maybe they were advised not to. And I'll leave it there. But there appears to be no means where a ransom really was a solid reason for why this happened to Miss Guthrie. There does not appear to be a viable ransom. 3 days later, that's a long time. It does not coincide. And even if there was a ransom requested, there was no ransom paid. 2 deadlines passed, according to the media. So my mind starts to look at things and I start to think, if it's not about a ransom where someone from exterior, from the outside, came in and violently took Miss Nancy Guthrie, then I have to start thinking, well, what else can it be? Because I have to look at the means. Who had the means? Who had the access? Who had the knowledge? Who knew Miss Guthrie was alone? Who knew she didn't have an alarm, no dog, inactive camera subscription? It has to be someone fairly close, right? Who would have the opportunity? If there is no physical breaking into this house that I can see and has not been reported, how did the person make entry into the home? Did they have a key? Don't know. Did they have a garage opener? We don't know. Was there a passcode? Or did Miss Nancy Guthrie let them in? Maybe she was awoken by someone that she trusted, that she personally and intimately knew. We don't know. I know when I saw that picture of the front door, there was no type of crowbar marks on that front door. I could tell you that. I don't know about other exterior doors. I haven't seen them. I'm not familiar with the property enough. I started looking at, you know, sadly, people sometimes they make bad decisions and people are taken for much less. Sometimes crimes involve life insurance payouts. They're looking at a person's estate, their assets, their property, any money they have in the bank. Sometimes a person may just be tired of caring for their ill parent, being a caretaker, running them around, making sure they have their needs met, taking them to the doctor, taking them shopping, kind of waiting on them. Maybe that is a possibility in this case. I do not know. I'm going to continue to look, watch, and see what comes out. Because I do not understand if this is a kidnapping abduction. I still now, 2 weeks in, have no idea what the captain wants. What do they want? Clearly not a ransom. I don't see it. There's been 2 opportunities to pay a ransom and those deadlines have passed. I don't see a romantic interest or unacquainted love. I don't see any of that. To me, it falls in the only category left, which is revenge. And when I look at revenge, I have to look at who had the motive, a reason to do something to Miss Guthrie. From all accounts, she's this loving mother. She does have some health issues, but she's still active. Her mind is sharp. Who would have a motive? Did she still work? Would this be something work related? Some type of investigation at work? Some type of report? Did she report something to 911? I have no idea what the motive is. But I have to look at who had the means. Who were the last people involved that she talked to, that she texted, that she saw, that she was involved with? What happened the evening at the dinner? Who was at the dinner? What happened at the dinner? Was everything okay? No, we don't know. We don't know. But we have to consider it all. I'm going to put up right here, if you want to report credible information, a lead, a tip, or you have some knowledge of the case, you can report it to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can contact the Pima County Sheriff's Office at 520-351-4900. Let me just put up another picture of Miss Guthrie because, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate what has happened. It's very sad. I don't know how much blood was lost at the scene. We just have to keep hope out there. But all the signs point to no proof of life, unfortunately, in my opinion. And I just have to keep going back. We haven't heard of any credit card usage, any bank account usage. We have no proof of life. It does not appear that the abductor broke into the property. We don't have any information about a break-in, a broken window. The house was very secure, impenetrable with all of the brick, the security doors. It almost feels like This is just such an odd occurrence because a lot of times elderly people are not targeted for an abduction or kidnapping. It's such a small number, and how things have kind of unfolded where you really don't have a real viable ransom, and it came in so many days later, but it was not paid. It's just a very odd set of circumstances. And when you just keep looking at the facts and the information, it does not appear to be in a kidnapping. Um, and definitely not a kidnapping with a ransom. I don't know who kidnaps a person but doesn't have a demand immediately or within hours for a ransom. It's just a very strange thing. Um, and I just have to look at, again, the motive. I still have no motive. 2 weeks in, I have no um, formulated idea of why this happened to Miss Guthrie. I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. What makes sense to me is if there was something that happened, um, a struggle, a fight, she was injured, she may have been subdued and fallen to her injuries. Um, and now to conceal a murder, this kidnapping idea, abduction has orchestrated. And there could be some financial undertones. If there was life insurance involved, if there is some money in a estate or assets, or um, clearly this property has to be over $1 million. That alone, 1 to $2 million in this area. Uh, that alone, you just never know why people do what they do. Um, and that would be right now the only motive that I could see. I don't really see a ransom, and it just doesn't feel like a kidnapping to me. And I have to think about who has the opportunity, who has the access to Miss Guthrie, who knows her habits, um, who knows her daily routines, and where was she leading up, the hours leading up. You have to look at it all. You cannot use blinders when you're talking about someone that does not appear to be someone that would be harmed at this age, at home, more than like more than likely sleeping in her bed, in her home, a very safe and secure home, brick security doors. Um, just doesn't make sense. And the lack of what I see as care, sending her in the Uber, um, not being concerned about her safety going in the house after she's getting dropped off. There's a lack of patience there. And it stands out a lot to me. I'm not going to lie, especially when we all are challenged with aging parents and grandparents, and how we treat them matters. It's important. We have to take a lot of love and patience with them and their needs. you know so I just wanted to get those thoughts out. um it's just my thoughts. Let me know, what do you think? Are you following the Nancy Guthrie abduction slash kidnapping? I'm going to call it disappearance. Are you following her disappearance? And if so, what are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think the motive is? Who do you feel had the means and opportunity to kidnap and abduct Miss Guthrie, if you want to view this as an abduction or kidnapping? I'm going to call it a disappearance, in my opinion. Okay, so thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. I want you to please stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy, all my friends. And hopefully I will see you in a video soon. Bye, everybody.